Hello. Welcome to my podcast, our podcast. This is Talking Torah, Tidbits, and Taboos with Libby. Hi, I'm Libby. I am an everyday person. I don't know that I can call it a particularly interesting life, but I found it interesting. And I decided to start this podcast for a few reasons. One, I've been told to start one. I was told I have a voice for it, which some people can agree, some people may not. But that's neither here nor there because I have a voice and I have something to share. And I believe that is my other reason for starting this podcast, which is my goal for this podcast is to bridge gaps and to have regular conversations with regular people and allowing those conversations to bridge those gaps. What I mean by that is I have found that we think we're so different than other people. We think that we are never going to be understood by other people. We will never understand these other people, and they're just too different. Or I'm so different than everybody else, and no one will understand me. And I've had many a conversation with people who are like me, people who are not like me, that have felt the same way, where they feel either isolated and alone or scared to have certain conversations because they don't want to be different. And as someone who has never shied away from being different, I thought this is a great area for me because I'm someone who is comfortable being different. I'm comfortable in my uniqueness. I'm comfortable in my ability to be rejected. And I don't need everyone to like me. I hope they do, if they have no reason to dislike me. But I like to think that I do my best to allow for people to like me. And this podcast is not an attempt to make more people like me. This is not going to be something that's comfortable. I think there's going to be a lot of conversations that happen on this podcast that might make several people uncomfortable. There may be episodes that people can't listen to. There might be episodes that people really struggle to listen to. There might be episodes that people listen to and stop listening to the podcast after that. But I want to give a voice to everyday people. I want to use this podcast to help people feel like they're not alone and feel like we're all like each other. We are all one and the same. We are all at our hearts people with our concerns and our worries and our struggles day in, day out. And we all just want to get through the day. Hopefully with joy and with support and with happiness. But at the end of the day, a lot of us are struggling, and we're struggling in ways that we feel like no one will ever know or no one can ever know, because if I put it out there, then people are only going to know me for that. And I'm comfortable with someone knowing me just for my struggles because I know who I am and I'm confident in my knowledge of myself and my ability to see past my own struggles. And I hope that through this podcast, you can get to know me better and get to know other people better and get to know yourself a little better. And my goal for this podcast is to have the difficult conversations. It's called Talking Torah, Tidbits, and Taboos because primarily we're just going to be talking. They're conversations. They are words exchanged, hopefully in a even-keeled, pleasant, calm, open manner where someone feels safe to share and to tell their story without it being overwhelming, without it being scary, without it being daunting, and that maybe through the conversations you hear on this podcast, you might have a conversation with someone in your life that you might not have thought you'd have, or that you were scared to have. And I'm willing to put myself on the butcher block for that. I'm willing to be the person that has those difficult conversations. I've tried to do that in my life. I'm not one for small talk, and a lot of people say that, but I've gotten to know many people on an intimate level where they've told me things that they wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable telling a random person, because I put myself out there and I say, oh, I don't really care about what this person's wearing or what that person said. I want to know how you are, and I want to celebrate your wins with you, and I want to celebrate the ups and the downs. And this is what this podcast is. It's me putting my everyday conversations that may not seem so everyday, but I really do believe that I have them quite often, maybe more often than other people. But this is what I hope is the start of a platform full of Torah, first and foremost, in the truest sense, in a world full of kindness, with a world full of giving, and with a world full of understanding, and a lot of humanity, because at the end of the day, we're all human and we are trying our best. And that's what the Torah is. It's how I live my life, and my lessons that I glean from it, and how it impacts the way that I live, because I am a religious Jew, and that's a very big part of my life, and it is the forefront of most things that I do. And so that's the Torah. And the tidbits are tidbits. They might be about mental health. They might be about bringing awareness to a mental illness you didn't know, or a diagnosis you didn't know. It might be just random tips and tricks that people have found that help them. And yeah, that's what tidbits are. They're just going to be tidbits. This is the very beginning, and I have many ideas of topics that I would love to discuss and people that I would love to have. And so I don't know what those tidbits are going to be, but I hope there are lots of good ones. And the taboos. And I think that's really the root of the podcast, is putting myself out there. And hopefully some other people will put themselves out there too. But I want to talk about the conversations that are not talked about enough. When I mentioned this podcast to a couple of friends, I have a very good friend of mine who is Hasidish and lives in Brooklyn. And I mentioned one of the topics that I wanted to talk about. And she said, people are really talking about that a lot more now. And I said, yeah, but just because they're talking about it more now doesn't mean another voice can't help, because another voice can always help. And that's what I'm hoping to be. I'm hoping to be just another voice. Well, not just another voice, but another voice adding to the noise around a lot of topics that are not discussed enough, and a lot of demographics that are not discussed enough, and a lot of issues that are really not discussed enough. So that's what this is. So I hope you'll join me. And if you have any topics or any conversations that you'd like to have, or any requests at all, we do have an Instagram, and there is a YouTube channel that you can leave comments on, and there is a Spotify that you can leave comments on, and there is also an email. The email is thetalking3podcast@gmail.com, and I would love to hear from any of you with any comments, requests, topics, stories, anything that it is. This is still very much a work in progress. So I am going to be learning. This is a learning curve, and this is very vulnerable and real, and I'll try my best to not filter it down because we're all human. We all make mistakes, and I want to be as real with you as I can be, because it's hard watching influencers or people online who are not in front of us, or even people in your lives that are in front of you. You never seem to see them buffering. You never see them messing up. And so I'm going to try and keep this very real. Despite the urge to edit and cut, I'm going to try and keep it real. And to be very honest, I really don't know how to edit. So that'll also probably be a learning curve. But yeah, welcome to Talking Torah, Tidbits, and Taboos with Libby. And here's to a amazing journey full of real conversations and growth and support and only good things.